Welcome in, Hokies fans, to this edition of the Tech Sideline Podcast. We record on Wednesday, January 19th, game day for the Virginia Tech men's basketball team as they travel down to Raleigh to face off with the NC State Wolfpack for the second time in just 15 days. On episode 219 of the Tech Sideline Podcast, we'll look back at Virginia Tech's first ACC win against Notre Dame on Saturday, look ahead to a tough stretch coming up. We're also going to check in on the women's basketball team, who is now 5-1 in the ACC. And we'll also check up on some news and notes with the football team as well. All of that and much more coming up on episode 219 of the Tech Sideline Podcast, which starts right now. We welcome you in, however you're taking in the Tech Sideline Podcast, whether that's archived on SoundCloud, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, or if you are on YouTube, if you're on our YouTube channel, make sure to subscribe, also like the video, and if you are in the YouTube live chat, be sure to drop a comment or question for Will and Chris. We'll get to those at the end of the show. As always, the Tech Sideline Podcast brought to you by the Southeast Regional Training Center. Virginia Tech Wrestling, a top 10 program in the country. You can continue to support that and bring Olympic hopeful athletes to Blacksburg. Be sure to visit southeastrtc.com for more details and to donate today. We're finally back. We got the usual crew on set after winter break is complete. Across the way, founder and general manager Will Stewart, filling in as host last week, did a great job. To my right, Chris Coleman, lead analyst and columnist for TechSideline.com. In the fourth chair, it's Katie Adams today. She also filled in admirably as host, previewing the Pinstripe Bowl. Behind the scenes, Malcolm Stewart doing a great job. And I am Jake Lyman, your host today. Want to hand it off to Will. It's been a while since we've all been together.
First of all, poor Katie having to preview the Military Bowl. At least you didn't have to do the follow-up
podcast.
Yes.
I didn't do that.
So I wanted to start off today with something a little off the beaten path, which was triggered, is probably the correct word, by something that happened last night. So last night from 8 p.m. until 3 a.m. in the morning, I received 25 emails from the same individual. This individual has now sent me, over the course of the last year, 235 emails, which all sound like this. I got to be careful. I got to pick my way here. There's some profanity and racist language in this stuff, but I'll go through it. You can't just kill nearly 1 million Americans with subtlety, an infectious under-the-radar disease. No, you need United American plane crashings, nearly 10,000 dead. Who the F is in charge here, Woodstock or Eisenhower? Eisenhower objects he built highways that Charlie Manson hitchhiked on. So Eisenhower hated Sharon Tate. Tattoo Island loves the USA Today, not a tattoo fan. The plane, that's why no tattoos. Pearl Harbor, NYC or DC? Again, in the last year, 235 emails of this nature. This conspiratorial, often racist, often vulgar gibberish. This person started emailing me in January of 2021, and I got a torrent of emails for about 3 months. And they often come in bursts like, now 25 is a record. 25 in 7 hours is a record. But I'd get 6 to 8 a night, and this went on for about 3 months, and I didn't really respond to it, you know. And then he went quiet for 9 months. And then starting on January 8th, so 11 days ago, I've now received 67 emails from this person in 11 days. And they are all of this nature. And I've emailed this person and said, stop emailing me. And I have emailed this person. So here's the weird thing is this person emails me from their personal Comcast account with this stuff. I know this person's name and their email address. Their middle name is included in their email address. I know this person's full name. I've Googled this person. Pretty sure I know who he is. He has a very, very low internet profile. He's listed somewhere that I won't get into. And so when this stuff started last year, I emailed Comcast and I said, I'm being harassed by, you know, one of your subscribers. No answer, of course. I haven't called Comcast yet. I accumulated a bunch of these emails together into a document and went and talked to an officer at the Blacksburg Police Department. He was fascinated by it. He was really fascinated by this torrent of gibberish. But he couldn't really do anything about it because there is no overtly threatening language towards me in these emails. So your answer is, first of all, like I said, I haven't called Comcast. So your answer is, well, just block his emails. When you block an email, this is my experience, when you block an email in your email package, it doesn't really block it. It funnels it over into your junk folder. Yeah. Well, I don't want that either because I got to go over there and look and make sure legit emails don't wind up in spam. So I have to see this stuff. So that's where we are. And this morning, when I woke up and realized I'd gotten 25, I thought, you know what? I'm going to out this person. I'm going on the podcast. I'm going to give their name.
Oh, Lord.
I'm not going to give their email address, you know, because I don't want to start that.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna list this person's name. Pretty sure it's a UVA fan that got banned from our message board. And honestly, folks, I don't remember. You know, we have people. I could tell stories. What I'll do is we'll drop a link in the podcast video description to an article I wrote 2 years ago called Unhinged, which tells a different story about a person who registered close to 120 times during the 2019 football season, including 20 times the night that Duke beat Virginia Tech 45-10. That was in 2019, correct? I got my year correct? Yeah. So I was going to come on and say, here's this person's name, and I was going to give their middle name. And I was going to say, if you know this person, tell them to stop. And then I thought, you know what? You don't really know what's going on here. This could be a person who is legitimately mentally ill, not just, hey, you're crazy for sending those emails, but, you know, facing legitimate mental illness.
And you should maybe consult your lawyer before doing that.
That too. That went through my mind. It's okay for him to do this to me, but maybe it's not okay for me to go on my podcast and say, hey, so-and-so, stop this. Could be a person with a brain tumor. Could be a person who's had a wonderfully productive life and is now dealing with Alzheimer's and just has no grip on reality. So I just thought I'd tell this story because I had to get this out because of the crap that we have to deal with sometimes. And also to kind of ask the community, what are my options here? Again, I don't want these emails coming in at all. I want them completely blocked. I want this person to know that this, or their caretaker, which could be the case, I want this person or their caretaker to know that this behavior is not acceptable. So if you're in the law enforcement community, if you work for Comcast, how do I really get this? Like, hey, Comcast, I don't want to block this person's email. I want you, when they type in my email address, to make it stop right there. So if you work for Comcast, let me know what my options are. If you're all in law enforcement, what are my options? You know, and again, it's just this is the stuff. So we are in this business, and there's actually a lot of Hokie fans on Twitter who also fit this same profile. You're quasi celebrities. You're known by a bunch of people. Chris tells stories all the time. He can't go to Champs without getting accosted by, "Hey, you're that guy on that podcast," you know. Malcolm, who never is on camera anymore, was at Champs the other night. And somebody was like, "Hey, I know you're Malcolm." Katie got recognized down at the Mayo Bowl. So we're in our small little world. We're celebrities. I can't imagine what it's like if you're a legit celebrity, where millions of people know who you are. I'll bet there are so many stories out there about getting harassed and stalked that you just never hear. So I thought I'd tell this story of this bizarre story. 65 emails in 11 days and 235 emails, all of this nature, you know. So Jake, you're on. Where are you going to go with that?
What a way to start the podcast. I guess that's how I come back. Katie, monitor the chat. Maybe somebody in there can
Has
help
some
out
advice.
I will update out my segment.
Yeah, at the midway point, we'll see if there's anybody who has some solutions for Will. Well, with that, let's get into some basketball.
Some actual sports talk.
Finally, some good things to talk about with the men's basketball team. A win in the ACC. Previously, we're 0-4. Big confidence-building win. You know, down 10 early against Notre Dame. We're able to battle back and pull away in that one. And Storm Murphy hitting the game-winning shot at the very end.
Yeah, and it didn't look like it was in the cards for quite a lot of that game.
Yeah.
I remember they kept showing the turnover stats, and I'm like, man, Virginia Tech's doing a great job protecting the ball. But then they showed Notre Dame's, and you're like, man, they're doing even better. They didn't even have their first turnover till
the second half.
And I don't remember what spot it was in the second half, but I thought the second half offensive performance by Tech was as good as you could possibly be. I don't know exactly what their shooting percentage was, but I thought they were efficient as they possibly could be. I thought they got a lot of open looks, both inside and outside. And that was I really expected them to look like that more this year. Not necessarily shooting such a high percentage they did in the second half against Notre Dame, but I thought they would look that crisp for most of the season. But with the exception of the St. Bonaventure game, the Notre Dame game, and a few other games here and there for parts of games,
right.
They haven't really looked like that.
And the St. Bonaventure game, I didn't even take seriously because St. Bonaventure was just
they checked out early.
Yeah.
That game was over before halftime.
It was like it was like Virginia Tech players had curfew in Charlotte the night before, and St. Bonaventure players didn't.
Right.
That's basically what that game was like. There was a game one time the Tech played. Oh gosh, I don't know if it was in the Virgin Islands or the Bahamas or something like that, but they played. I don't remember who they played. It might have been Seton Hall or Mississippi State or something. And Tech won by like 30 or 40.
Right.
And you knew that team that Tech played was way better than that. And then it came out that the team had been down there for several days and they didn't really practice. All they did is hang out on the beach and drink.
Yeah.
And then they played Tech in basketball. And
was
Tech
that the one where Dorenzo Hudson went off for like 40 or something?
No, that
like
was
that?
a close game.
That was okay.
The one I'm talking about was like a total rout. Or maybe it was Seton Hall. Maybe that's why Tech was able to win the game without Malcolm Delaney. I don't know, but it was one of those games. Yeah.
And after losing to Virginia back on, I believe, Wednesday, 2-point loss to Virginia, you're 0-4. Was that a must-win for Virginia Tech to kind of keep the season alive? You go 0-5 in the ACC. It kind of feels
especially with the upcoming schedule.
Yes, exactly. And we're going to talk about that later. But does it feel like if they hadn't been able to pull that one out in the end, that season maybe you're looking at NIT at the best at that point?
Yeah.
I actually didn't want to think about it. I didn't go there. I was like, there's a lot of basketball left to be played. So you mentioned that they pulled it out in the end. First of all, let's go. I had Katie pull up the box score. Let's go over some of the stats, like who were Tech's leading scorers.
It was Mutz with 24 and Aluma with 17. Or no, I'm sorry. It was Naheem Aline had 22.
Right. So
Mutz
Aline
and
broke out. We didn't even talk about that. Did Aline go like 9 of 11 or something like that?
He was 8 of 10.
8 of 10. Right.
Mutz and Aline combined to go 17 of 21 for 46 points.
Wow. So, and Mutz, I went on Twitter during the UVA game and I said, Mutz has been invisible, which wasn't fair because he was playing good defense against UVA, but offensively he just wasn't there. Well, in this game, he was definitely there. So you talked about down the stretch, and I know there's a lot of detail to a basketball game, but it's a lot of sports. Just tune in for the last few minutes and watch what happens in the last 2 minutes. So if you look at Tech's last 3 games, they lost to NC State. So let me make sure I get all of this exactly correct because I printed it out. So with about 5 minutes left to go against NC State, Tech was winning 59-58. Got outscored 10-4 down the stretch, and 2 of those points came right at the buzzer. And they lost 68-63. At UVA with 3:14 to go, Tech was leading 52-48. Got outscored 6-0 down the stretch, went 0 for 3 from the field, turned it over 3 times. Yep. And 2 of the 3 shots that they missed were like right in the last 10 seconds.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So just not getting it done down the stretch. And then you go to this Notre Dame game with 2:03 to go. It was tied at 71. And you're getting this creepy feeling because, oh, man, this team has not been able to close out.
We've seen this before.
Game.
Yeah, and so then Aluma misses a chippy. And there's that instant where you're like, no, and then Mutz grabs it and slams it in to make it 73-71. Notre Dame ties it at 73, and then Tech runs away with it down the stretch. Of course, scores, I think, the last 6 points of the game to win 79-73. And the key play was Storm Murphy making the 3-pointer with 20 seconds left.
Yep, the dagger from the right wing.
Yeah, it was 75-73, and Storm makes the shot. And Notre Dame down the stretch, let me see what I've got in my notes here for them. In the last 2:03, Notre Dame went 2 of 4 from the line, including missing the front end of a 1-on-1. And they went 0 of 3 from the field. Whereas Tech went, starting with the Mutz dunk, Tech went 2 of 2 from the field, 3 of 4 from the line. So they just outplayed him down the stretch. And so that got me to thinking, sorry to monopolize the microphone here, but that got me to thinking about one of the things that people are starting to say that I think is fair, and Aaron McFarling wrote about this for the Roanoke Times, is that Tech is not using their bench very much. So I looked at the bench minutes and points. So let me grab the spreadsheet for that.
Oh, they went over it on the broadcast.
Did they?
The points Tech's bench has scored in ACC games. I forget the exact number.
The bench in the last 3 games has scored 12 combined points in the last 3 games.
So, and it's more than just points; it's minutes. And actually, my points don't line up, but we'll go over this. It's minutes. NC State's bench played 45 minutes, and Tech's bench played 35 minutes. That's not a big difference in minutes. NC State's bench had 8 points. Tech's had 2. You go to UVA. UVA's bench played 46 minutes, and that was led by Francisco Cafaro, 30 minutes and 16 points. So they played 46 minutes and had 18 points, and Tech's bench played 24 minutes and had 2 points. Notre Dame, and this is what got me to thinking, Notre Dame's got a similar issue where they don't play many bench players. They played 2 guys off the bench, and that was it. And I think one of them played a lot because, David, who's the interior guy for Notre Dame who was in foul trouble?
Nate Leshevsky.
Yeah. So they had a player or 2 in foul trouble. Atkinson. That's what I thought. So Notre Dame's bench played 27 minutes, but it was just 2 guys. Now, they had 9 points. That's pretty good. Tech's bench played 23 minutes, so the bench minutes were a lot closer. And the reason I bring all that up is if you are not getting to rest during a game, you're getting fatigued towards the end, and that affects your performance over the last, 3 to 5 minutes when games are decided.
And again, you mentioned against Virginia, the last 3 minutes of the game, the Hokies did not score.
Yeah.
You score once, you're at least going to overtime. Hokies couldn't get that done.
Well, that's going to be an issue coming up because Virginia Tech is playing an NBA schedule over the next month.
Yeah.
Like 3 or 4 games a week because of the COVID cancellations and subsequent reschedules.
And this year they actually rescheduled.
Right, exactly, which I did not expect. So when you're playing that many games in that short amount of time, you're probably going to have to use your bench more. You're going to have to. He doesn't seem to want to use Ogiaco. And at this point in Ogiaco's career, to develop Ogiaco, he's past the point of developing in practice.
Yeah, he's got to play.
To a certain, he needs to play to develop.
Yeah.
So you need to get him out there because you've seen Keve Aluma down the stretch at times this year kind of falter, probably because he's out of gas because he's playing almost every minute of it.
Well, the end of the NC State game, NC State, I've got this written down. NC State had 8 offensive rebounds in the last 5 minutes. 5 offensive rebounds on 1 possession.
Well, OG,
and a lot of that's fatigue, and a lot of it's is that Tyrese Radford isn't here anymore.
Well, I think when you come off a COVID pause and a large number of your players, particularly the front court, have not been able to practice. I mean, I saw John Ogiaco riding a bicycle through my neighborhood to stay in shape, so you do the math there. That's certainly part of it. It's kind of weird. It's going to be weird playing that many games in such a short amount of time. From a competitive balance standpoint, you need to replay them. I feel bad for the players because they didn't sign up. They're not NBA athletes, right? They still have to do classwork.
Got to do schoolwork,
and it's kind of unfair to them from that standpoint because you're right in the middle of the semester, and all of a sudden there are going to be some weeks where those dudes are barely in Blacksburg.
Yeah, classes started yesterday, and now the Hokies. Well, today is the 19th, up until the 29th, so 10, 11 days, however you want to look at it. The Hokies have 5 games at NC State tonight, at Boston College on Saturday, at UNC on Monday, Miami at home on Wednesday, Florida State on the road on Saturday.
So basically, until next Tuesday, they're basically on the road every day in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, that's a brutal stretch.
So that we'll dive into that. I still want to talk about, we mentioned Storm Murphy hitting that 3 at the end. It does seem like he's starting to develop into the offensive player that Tech fans expected him to be. He's making floaters in the lane. And I wrote this down. His first 11 games, he only shot 41 three-pointers, made 14 of them. In the last 5 games, he's made 14 of 29. So he's starting to find that stroke from three-point range.
GC Hokie 34 put up a predicted outcomes post on the basketball
board. I didn't get a chance to read that.
It was really, really good. And basically he talked about a guy the National signed a few years ago, Josh Bell. Yeah. And Josh Bell was absolutely creaming the baseball over the first half of the season. And but he was hitting 1-something. Because every time he'd cream it right at somebody. Right. And if you did, baseball advanced stats are so advanced these days that if you hit the ball, the example he used was if the ball comes off the bat at 113 miles an hour, at this angle, it's an X percentage chance that it's going to be a hit. And Josh Bell was doing everything right, but for some reason it was always hit right at somebody. And so it was like, did something need to change? Well, no. I mean, eventually if you keep doing that, it's going to start dropping, right? And it did. Yeah. It did. Second half of the season, it started dropping for him. And like that last possession against UVA, I mean, those 2 shots were wide open by 2 really good shooters.
Yep.
Obviously, Naheem Aline. Let's talk about him. The guy's basically shooting 20 or 25% for a month.
Since the Dayton game, he was 8 of 40 heading into the Notre Dame game.
Right. So he's not that bad of a shooter. He's not 8 of 10 either. Right. So it's going to average out probably. So you just had to. Last week in the Q&A, somebody asked some basketball questions, and I used the Ken Pomeroy luck metrics. And the Pomeroy luck metrics are basically, it looks at what you've done in close games and compares it to your efficiency rating on both sides of the ball. Because basically, each team, you shouldn't lose all of your close games and you shouldn't win all of your close games. It should be kind of
back and forth.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I did it for this year's Tech team, and I did it for the 2005-2006 Hokies, which lost all those close games down the stretch, including the half-court shot, Sean Dockery, Duke, all that.
They went 4-12 in the ACC, and most of those games were close.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And as it turned out, that 2005-2006 team ranked dead last in the luck metrics in Cam Paramore's ratings. Tech was the unluckiest basketball team in the country. Well, this year, going in the Notre Dame game, I think Tech was like 8th from the bottom in luck rating in close game. 348 right now. So it's just not. You use the predictive outcomes, and the predictive outcomes might. I think the predicted outcomes have been accurate for like if you up until 3 minutes left in basketball games for Virginia Tech. And I'm not saying there's things that Tech couldn't be doing better and things like that, but It's like I wrote in the Friday Q&A. Like, let's say one of those shots at the end of the UVA game went in. They were both wide open. And let's say the Xavier shot at the end didn't go in.
Yeah.
And people are a lot happier.
Yeah, and so in layman's terms, I just kept saying this team is not this bad,
No, they're absolutely not. And the thing you have to remember, like, it's not a 16-game ACC schedule anymore. It's a 20-game ACC schedule, which there's a lot of opportunity for losses there. Of course, there's also a lot of opportunity for wins. Guess what? The ACC is not very good. It's not good. We keep saying that it's not good. Miami might be the best team in the ACC now. And they're really not that good. It's just the rest of the league stinks, right?
Miami just beat UNC last night by 28
Guess
points.
what? UNC's not very good. They don't play defense, okay? So Tech still has plenty of opportunities to win basketball games here. We got 15 ACC games left?
Yep.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically, back in the day, that was almost a whole ACC schedule, 15 games. Right.
So I was watching Packer and Durham this morning. I was working, and it was on. And when I turned it on, they were talking about Virginia Tech. And I tweeted this out on the Tech Sideline account. Despite the fact that Tech is 9-7 and 1-4 in the ACC, correct? Their Ken Palm ranking is 21st in the country and second in the ACC. Their BPI is 22nd in the country and second in the ACC. Their net is 40th and second in the ACC. So the record looks bad, but the computers so far love Virginia Tech. And this is interesting. It's life on the bubble. We're used to it here in Blacksburg.
Yep.
And you can see this collision course of a record that when you look at it doesn't look that great, but the computer numbers, we hope, by the end of the season will be good. What is the committee going to decide?
And right now, if you look at Joe Lunardi or anybody else who does bracketology, Tech is kind of in that last four in, first four out, next four out, somewhere in that range right now. And I guess you have to win games to get yourself in that field.
Tech's computer numbers are going to be there.
Yes.
It's just a matter of will they win enough games, which is why I'm glad they rescheduled the Pitt game. And if you were sitting there looking at it, like, I don't know how the NCAA selection committee is going to treat things this year with regards to, this team only finished with 18 wins, but they had 3 games canceled due to COVID. How does that compare to this other team that played all their games
and
they won 20
wins,
games?
Yeah.
Right.
And if you split the ACC season into quarters, we're through one quarter of the season, Tech's 1-4. We mentioned that schedule for the next quarter. You got 4 road games and Miami at home, who's currently 6-1 in the ACC. Is this the stretch that kind of defines the season for Tech? If you go 3-2 over that stretch, you're feeling pretty good. But if you go 2-3, 1-4 again, that's when you have to start to worry.
That's when you have to start thinking, man, we really need to run off 5 out of 6 or something like that, which is difficult to do.
Yeah, I don't know. If they go 1-4 again in the next 5 and they're 2-8.
Oh yeah, that's
done. That's it.
Well, and there are a lot of winnable games. NC State tonight again. That's a winnable game for Tech. They were coming off the COVID pause, lost by 5 at home. It's in Raleigh, but an opportunity to win there. Boston College, one of the worst teams in the ACC.
Unless they get down by 22. And they come back and win against Clemson.
To beat Clemson. That game at noon on Saturday in Chestnut Hill. But again, those are both winnable games. If the Hokies can string those few together, you'd feel pretty good heading into UNC on Monday.
Every time Brad Brownell, every time I start to think he's a good coach, he does something like that to make me think
they pull me back in.
Yeah, I mean, it's too early to like make predictions. Right? Like as far as I thought Tech would be an NCAA tournament team before the season started, but you don't foresee like losing almost every single close game, right?
Early on.
I mean, you think you're going to lose. I mean, close games, theoretically, you should win half of them and lose half of them, right?
Yeah.
For those one-possession games that come down to the wire and everything like that.
Memphis and Xavier both were close at the very least in the last few minutes, and then NC State, UVA.
I mean, the shot the Xavier guy made to beat Tech was a much, much more difficult shot than the 2 wide-open shots that
Virginia Tech
40% three-point shooters missed against Virginia.
Exactly. And so much of basketball is confidence and rhythm, and if the guys get confidence, who knows what could happen. So we'll be here 5 games from now, and we'll see how things look.
Well, again, those 3 road games in a row, NC State, BC, UNC. Miami, the next home game in Castle Coliseum. That's next Wednesday, a week from today. And then Florida State on the road. Those 2 teams coming off big wins last night. Again, I mentioned Miami blew out UNC. FSU upsetting Duke in Tallahassee, 79-78 in overtime. So Seminoles may be starting to put it together as well.
Yeah, for a while it looked like Duke and everybody else, and now Duke's faltering a little bit, and Miami's playing better than people expected. Is that a reflection of Miami or the ACC? Probably both.
I see a lot of talent on that team. I mean, I haven't watched
Miami always has good talent on their basketball teams.
Yeah,
I think, in my opinion,
South Beach recruits itself,
just like their football team. Imagine that. Yeah,
and we'll talk a lot about those 2 games next week on the podcast. But NC State tonight in Raleigh. David Cunningham, managing editor, he's in the room with us right now. His preview up now on techsideline.com, so check that out.
Nice.
But how do the Hokies get a little revenge for that game in Castle Coliseum back on January 4th, losing by 5? It was a tough game. Aline, Couture, and Mutz shot 8 of 25 combined. You would think that's not going to happen again tonight.
Somebody needs to put on their Boots helmet and be the Tyrese Radford for Virginia Tech, because it was really there's a lot of detail in that game, and I think Virginia Tech is way better coached in game than NC State is. Now, I felt that watching that game in Castle. But I think NC State has, when you get down in crunch time, they do have the superior playmakers. They've got Darren Sebron, is that his name?
Sebron, yep.
Yeah. Excellent player, guys that can make plays down the stretch.
He's from the 757, right?
I believe.
Yeah.
Lake Taylor.
Yeah. So,
he was a guy that he was not a highly touted guy coming out of high school.
I don't want to sit here and go with the easy answer of, hey, Naheem Aline needs to keep shooting like that, because that's kind of Captain
But yes,
Obvious
he needs to. He doesn't need to keep shooting 8 of 10 because that's impossible. He just needs to not shoot 20%.
Not shoot 2 of 11.
He needs to shoot his normal rate.
Yeah. So when I think part of what, and help me out with this discussion, part of what happened in the Notre Dame game was that Hunter Couture, for example, did not have a good offensive game.
He didn't score.
Yeah, he got taken away, and other guys filled in the gaps.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Virginia Tech's had issues where they've only had 1 or 2 scores. They haven't had 3.
Yeah.
So that would be my answer. First of all, don't give up 8 offensive rebounds in 5 minutes. And secondly, let's have 3 guys we can count on the score at least.
And I think that's when the Hokies win. You look at that Notre Dame game, you had Aluma probably always has to be one of them, you would think. He's always got to score about 15
a lot of pressure,
or more.
but
It is, and he's come up big as of late. I wanted to talk about him. 22, 6-3 against UVA, 17-8 against Notre Dame. A month ago when I was here last, we talked about how he wasn't playing the way he was. It seems like he's gotten back to himself.
The numbers were there, but he wasn't taking advantage of enough one-on-one matchups like he was capable of doing. And now whenever teams are playing him one-on-one, he's doing an awesome job of taking care of those matchups.
He's playing really well, I think, because of the fact that Virginia Tech's 1-4. I don't think he's really – remember, he was preseason All-ACC, right?
Yes, he was second.
He was number 2 in votes.
Player of the year candidate.
Only behind Boncaro.
And nobody's talking about that right now. He can be that guy down the stretch, but I kind of think that ship's probably sailed unless Tech goes on some huge run.
Yes. The main thing is manage fatigue levels.
Yeah.
Because he's playing a lot of minutes, and like I said, it's going to be an NBA schedule for the next month, basically. So, but basically, Tech's not going to have a chance to practice for just about the next month of basketball because there's only going to be a day between each game.
Yeah.
So you finish your game, so you finish tonight's game.
You come back for class tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning, maybe you get a walkthrough in, and then you fly to Boston.
Yes.
Is that whether that this weekend?
Boston on Saturday at noon. That's an early game,
Right.
so you're going there Friday probably.
You're going there on Friday.
Straight to North Carolina.
From Boston.
From Boston.
Right. Like I said, it's an NBA schedule.
And then you play Miami at home 2 days later.
Right.
So
there's going to be no chance to actual practice, work on skills. The only practice time they're going to get is going to be walkthroughs, preparing for the next opponent, and some shoot-arounds and things like that. So right now it's all about managing fitness levels. It's really just got to make sure your guys aren't gassed at the end of games, and that means you're not going to be doing full court practices and things like that. They got to be 100% for games.
So what you just outlined is 3 road games and then Miami at home.
Yes, all within the next week.
Man, see, that's you think to yourself, they finally get that home game, it's against a really talented team, and it comes after, flying all over the East Coast.
Yeah.
And then you head right back down to Tallahassee to play Florida State on Saturday.
Where Tech has never won. Well, not since the 80s, right?
That's Louisville, isn't it?
Tech hasn't won.
Tech hasn't won at Tallahassee.
At
either?
Tallahassee.
Really?
Now, Tech hasn't beat Louisville at all
Ever.
since, 91.
Since 1990, I think.
Yeah. So,
90 or
what
91.
is the Louisville game? All right, so primary goal, make the NCAA
Beat
tournament.
Louisville.
Of course. But
Secondary goal.
Secondary goal, even above making the NIT, which is, to me, the NIT is like making a minor bowl game.
Whatever.
Secondary goal, beat Louisville.
Check that box, man.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be interesting tonight. An opportunity for Tech to string 2 wins together, and really a big game for Virginia Tech. This is one they probably should win against NC State in Raleigh, so we'll see if they can get that done tonight. With that, let's hand it over to Katie. What you got in the 4th chair today?
Well, first we'll do an update on Will's email saga. So from Richie Worrell, he's commented, "There's no way to completely block an email address like you said. It will always just go to your spam or trash folder. That said, you could write a script that would auto-delete from your spam. Would be a great project for a computer science student." So, if you know any.
I do have a son who's a junior at South Carolina majoring in computer science.
Oh,
There you go.
Isn't that convenient?
All right,
Maybe
well.
present this issue to him and
Yep.
we can
So
get it
that was
squared
kind
away.
of that was kind of a
that
sorry,
tuition
not
money.
sorry comment.
Yeah, but wanted to give an update on the Commonwealth Clash that involves Virginia Tech and Virginia competing in all sports. So currently Virginia Tech leads 4.5 to 1.5. And then there's 3 opportunities to kind of extend that lead. Obviously, women's basketball plays UVA January 27th. Men's basketball plays UVA February 14th. And then wrestling on February 18th. So all in the next month.
The key for Virginia Tech is like getting a big lead before the spring sports, right?
Yeah.
Now, Tech will smoke UVA in softball, but like baseball, UVA generally wins. So you get out to a big lead before the spring sports start.
Definitely.
Some tidbits revolving the NC State game tonight. I think we all remember that last matchup in Raleigh that Tech won 47 to 24.
What a game.
Yeah, in that game, the Hokies held NC State to 16.7% shooting, which is the lowest mark in ACC history. And the 24 points that they scored were the fewest scored by Division I team in the last
I wouldn't
10
say we
years.
held them, Bob. They kind of held themselves.
Oh, it's brutal.
Anyway, sorry to go.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. Yeah, I mean, it's just interesting that in the last 10 years, that's the fewest points ever scored by a Division I team.
I mean,
hopefully history repeats itself. Probably not. But
Scoring 47 points in a blowout win, that doesn't happen very often.
Sound very. Yeah, I remember watching that game at B-Dubs, and
just
we
couldn't
were all
believe
just
it.
incredulous. Like, can't believe this is happening.
it just
At
kept
some point, they're
going.
going to start making shots, right?
They never did.
They never did.
So a friend of mine out in my neighborhood is an NC State graduate, and he's not a huge NC State fan, but he's been to a game in Raleigh, and it was that game.
Oh, man.
Wow.
He actually traveled down there, got tickets, and sat there and watched that
Can
abomination.
you imagine, like, you hadn't been to a Virginia Tech game in years, and you're so excited to come back to Blacksburg, and you get your ticket, and what a great experience it's going to be. And then Tech scored 24 points.
Shoots 17%.
Right. Now, like, as a comparison, like the 2010 Virginia Tech NC State football game in Raleigh was higher scoring than that last basketball.
That
game
is
in Raleigh.
correct.
That's
But
crazy.
if you want to know what it's like to experience that, just ask Tech fans who flew in from the West Coast for the time that Duke beat Tech 45 to 10 in Lane Stadium. They know that feeling.
And then lastly, I'm hoping the next time we jump on a podcast, it's largely reviewing the 2022 Virginia Tech football schedule that has yet to be released. Wanted to shout out Clark Ruland, who had a cool tweet. He tweeted all the ACC football schedule release dates since Virginia Tech joined the ACC, and by the looks of that, you would think that the schedule would come out sometime next week. Last year, it was released January 28th. The year before is the 22nd, the 16th, the 16th, the 24th, 26th, and you know the rest. But
All right, so it's
hopefully
about
next
that
week
time.
it's coming.
So sometimes as early as the 16th, did you say?
Yeah.
Okay,
Which
so
was 2 days
honestly,
ago.
it could come out
Tomorrow.
any time now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they usually reveal that on Packer and Durham
Yes.
or on the ACC network at some point.
Oh
So,
yeah, that's right. They started doing that last year.
Yeah.
They started revealing it on Packer and Durham.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then you'll know.
And do they go in alphabetical order? So Tech's like
I
always.
think
first.
they
I think they do. So you'll have to fill in the gaps as the other teams go. You'll see,
Right.
okay, we play this team here.
Twitter usually goes like that while they're doing all that.
That's all for me.
All right. Well, thank you, Katie. Thank you for the update on Will's email stuff. Keep checking. Maybe we'll see at the end when we get to the questions and comments in the YouTube chat. Again, keep leaving those. We'll get to those at the end of the show. We're going to take a break here on episode 219 of the Tech Sideline Podcast. When we come back, we're going to dive into the women's basketball team who got another big win last night, now 5-1 in the ACC. We'll also check on a couple of football developments that have happened over the last week as well. A little bit of fun stuff at the end too. Stay with us here on episode 219 of the Tech Sideline Podcast. We'll be right back. Welcome back on episode 219 of the Tech Sideline podcast, brought to you by the Southeast Regional Training Center. We are talking about the men's basketball team, but now we're going to move on to the women's basketball team and football here in the second half of the show. Want to remind you, if you are on the YouTube live or watching archived on YouTube, be sure to subscribe, like the video, and comment, and be sure to leave questions and comments for Will and Chris, and we'll get to those at the end of the show. We had a little bit of switch. David is now on the show. David and I had the same idea for our wardrobe today.
Oh, look at you guys.
So we look the same. Good news is most of the shots were not together, so it doesn't look like that. We got David, Will, Katie still on set. We're going to talk some women's hoops now. They've been the better of the two programs so far this season, 13-4. 5-1 in the ACC, really bounced back after kind of a strange loss to Liberty right before the ACC schedule. Had some big wins, have beat Duke twice, ranked team both times, both by 10 or more points. FSU opened up ACC play with a 17-point win, then last night a blowout win of UVA. Seem to be finding their stride here.
They are good. And the thing about the Liberty loss, because that was right after Tennessee, and that was like, as Kenny Brooks described it, it was a bad 48 hours. Yeah. But that was also like right in the middle of exams. And just with all of that going on, I think Tech had some time to sit back and reset. You mentioned Florida State. Florida State's a really good program, and Tech got over that hump. Yep. Then Tech beat Duke twice, once in Cameron, once here.
Is Duke still ranked?
Yeah, they're 23, I think.
Yeah, Tech is not right.
Tech is 27th. They're the second outside.
And you know what I will say is the biggest matchup so far for Tech this season comes up this Sunday. It's number 4 NC State in Raleigh.
Now, they were very competitive with NC State last year.
They beat NC State once last year.
And they should have beaten them the other time, too.
Yep.
So this is a team right now that is really firing on all cylinders. I don't think last night against Virginia was their best performance.
I'm going to disagree with you because they were talking about this during the broadcast last night, and I agree with them that Kitley and Shepard, there are very few instances where both of them have been playing to their peak capability. So sorry to interrupt.
I just say that because talking with the players after the game and talking with Kenny, they just weren't very impressed with the way they played. And I think there was a little bit of a lack of energy just in the arena, but also from the team, but they did get the job done. But I mean, Elizabeth Kitley, 7 straight double-doubles. I mean, she looks like the best player in the ACC right now. Elisa Cunane, who she played AAU ball with, plays for NC State. They'll play each other on Sunday. Yeah. Cunane's always giving her fits, but no, this is a Tech team that's really, really hot right now. And all of the wins, they were down at Duke and came back and won. They've been down a couple other times, and or it looks like this is in past years this is a team that the game might have slipped away from them, and they haven't, and they've stayed together, and they've really gotten over that hump and finished strong. And there's a lot of Tech's basically running 6-7 players right now, maybe 8 or 9 depending on the depth, but I mean, Tech has a solid core of like 6 players. Azana Baines is coming off the bench, and she had a phenomenal game against Duke. So this is a really, really good team right now. They just need to keep it up. They got Pitt on Thursday, which should be a win. Pitt is second to last in the ACC.
Generally they're pretty bad.
And but then NC State, and you have a chance to. Tech's probably going to be 6-1 heading into NC State, who's currently 7-0 in the ACC.
Yeah. So I don't want to be that guy, but I do want to ask you the one outlier there is the 71-46 game against UNC.
Yes. Yeah.
Now I didn't watch that one. I watched the first few minutes and just gave it the old, I'll see where this is going. What did the team have to say about that, and what do you attribute that to?
Yeah, well, it was interesting. I listened to Evan Hughes. I was driving back to Blacksburg, and I listened to Evan the whole way home, and Tech just got out to a slow start, and North Carolina was just a lot more physical and rebounded well, and a lot of second chance opportunities, and it kind of just got away from them in the first quarter, and North Carolina kind of just kept their distance from there. And but besides that, that's the last 7 games, that's the only game Tech has lost, and that's the one outlier like you mentioned. That was kind of just, I think Tech really got off to a slow start. And it was one of those games where UNC is really good on the interior in the front court, and Kitley still put up a double-double, but
they were double and triple team.
But they were going after her, and it was another game where Asia Shepherd didn't play well, and she's kind of been in a slump recently. She had a couple big threes against Duke the other night, but she's been in a little bit more of a slump. And that was one of those games where if it wasn't going to Kitley, it was just really tough for Tech to get anything going. Yeah. And I think that's going to be the interesting part down the stretch for Virginia Tech when – if Elizabeth Kitley, you can say she's the best player in the ACC. When Tech is, teams are double and triple teaming her, and she is struggling, because she can still put up good numbers and not play that well, right? Because that's how good she is. Can Tech get somebody else going? Can Kayla King, Asia Shepherd, Georgia Amore, Azana Baines, Kiana Traylor, three of those players were on last night for Tech. Can those guys get going? I think that's going to be the key down the stretch.
So let's talk about Kitley a little bit. I'm experiencing a thing that's disappointing, and I first started thinking about this when I watched Michael Vick play for Virginia Tech. You get used to how really good they are.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say you become unimpressed, but every time Michael had the football in his hands, you were like, okay, do something amazing.
Yeah.
And Kitley puts up these ridiculous numbers. It was 6 blocks.
She had 6 blocks last night. Yeah.
4 blocks away from a triple double. And the announcers are saying, "Oh, she's got one more year left, right?"
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is really cool.
And the funniest part is post game, Kenny Brooks goes, she still hasn't reached her peak yet. She still hasn't peaked yet. And I think,
what does he think's missing?
I think he specifically mentioned working on some more of her post moves and getting her game to where it's kind of like fluid, where she can kind of go inside, outside. I think they want to refine her. She can shoot the 3 a little bit.
Yeah.
Get her where she's more comfortable out there. But I think, she has that turnaround, kind of like Dirk Nowitzki-esque move where she just hits the little fade.
It's impossible to stop.
Impossible to guard. Yeah. And he just wants to get her a little bit more fluid there. But yeah.
So I was a Sixers fan growing up, and so they had this rivalry with the Celtics.
Yeah.
And Celtics had Kevin McHale, and Kevin McHale was 6'11" and had arms that were 9 feet long. And he would do that thing, that Kitley move has been compared to, people compare it to Dirk Nowitzki. Me, it sort of reminds of Kevin McHale, except McHale would stretch those nine, he'd fade away from you, 6'11", and he put the ball way up here. He wouldn't even get off the floor. He'd be this high off the floor, but you could not block.
You couldn't catch, because you couldn't reach all the way up
get
there.
all the way back there.
Yeah.
And having Liz Kitley, you mentioned, she's getting double teamed and triple teamed. It seems like the Hokies have that great personnel. You've got the beast in the paint with Kitley, and then you've got 4 elite shooters on the outside. If Shepard's hot, Kayla King's hot, Georgia Amore's hot, and now Kiana Traylor, the Purdue transfer, she's been fantastic as well. It seems like the Hokies have that inside-outside ability that could maybe make them make a run in the ACC or in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, well, and the other thing is they move the ball really well. There were a couple instances last night, I don't know if you saw, Will, where, especially in transition, there was one play where Georgia Amore stole the ball and basically cut all the way up the floor and kicked it out, and it went bam, bam, bam in the paint to Kitley, easy layup. And it's the ball movement, it's the sharing the ball. It's not like Tech's not one-on-oneing anybody. No ISO ball. It's share the ball. And I think that was one of the big things Kenny talked about after the Duke game was Duke doubled Kitley a couple times, and what really led to Tech winning was late in that fourth quarter, Tech doubled and left Asia Shepherd on an island wide open, and Kitley recognized it and kicked it out and hit a couple threes, and that was the game. And Kiana Traylor, her ability to slash the rim has really provided a different element to this Virginia Tech offense, but Georgia Amore has been phenomenal at the point guard, and then Asia Shepherd in a little bit of a slump right now, but and then Kayla King, and I think the player of the game for the Duke game was Azana Baines, just because
15 rebounds,
revenge game for her.
Yeah, former Duke transfer. I mean, there are just so many pieces to this team, and I think the biggest thing down the road is just consistency, because there's so many good pieces. It's can they play together on a consistent basis?
Right. And so we don't talk about the women's basketball team a lot here on the podcast, so I want to get this out there. I think Georgia Amore is incredibly underrated.
Yeah.
her speed with the ball is, she's a water bug. She keeps it moving, and that is, I don't think that's appreciated. I think they said last night on the broadcast, in ACC play, she's Virginia Tech's second leading scorer.
Yeah.
She's a very good shooter who should probably shoot more, but they have so many options that I know she's not really looking for that. But she's so fast with the ball, and you talked about the ball movement, and there's this thing of dribbling too much. You should pass the ball instead of dribbling so much. It doesn't bother me when she, in air quotes, dribbles too much, because she's so fast and pressures a defense when she dribbles around like that.
And she's the catalyst for everything.
And she's a phenomenal passer too. I believe she leads the team in assists. And early on in her freshman year last year, it seemed like she had a little bit of a turnover problem, and that's resurfaced a few times. But for the most part, it seems like she's cleaned it up a little bit, been a lot more careful with the basketball too.
Yeah, and I think having Traylor alongside her in the backcourt helps. And that is like a completely different element, because now Kenny can basically bring Georgia to the bench, rest her for a couple minutes, and let Traylor go, and Traylor runs the offense. But you mentioned Georgia, just her ability to... She's always driving downhill, but every single time it's like she's waiting for the defense to collapse so she can find her teammates on the perimeter. And the one play that I just mentioned earlier that sticks out to me is, it's like every single time she's in transition, she just dribbles and waits for the defense to collapse, and then she just kicks it out to one of her teammates who's trailing for an open three. And that is good offense, and it's all created because of the way she can dribble and the way she forces defenders to basically guard her.
And she never looks fatigued to me. And when they put the camera on her, she smiles a lot during games. These are high pressure affairs, and she always looks relaxed.
Yeah.
Like, I'm coming right back at you.
And just her second year with the program as well, she's been phenomenal. And again, we mentioned Kiana Traylor, transfer from Purdue. Kenny Brooks snags last year the Boilermakers' leading scorer and brings her in here.
She was scoring 15 a game.
And she was coming off the bench early on in the season. She's moved into the starting lineup. But it's been Kenny Brooks, I think, early on in his career, kind of the story around him was he's great in non-conference and then can't get it done when it gets to ACC play. Hasn't been the case this year. 5-1, third in the ACC, only 2 teams in front. Number 3, Louisville. Number 4, NC State.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest things was he had talent here and there.
Reagan McGarity and
Taylor
Emery.
His first big recruit was Asia Shepherd,
yes,
who came in my year. I remember when Asia committed. And Asia was, 5-star, one of the best players in that class.
Yeah.
And it was just trying to find pieces around her. And he had Taylor Emery and Reagan McGarity, but he just didn't have enough. It was like he had 2 or 3 pieces, but you need a good starting lineup and then maybe a 6th or a 7th piece to complement. Yeah. And that's why Tech would destroy the non-conference and then lose in these tight ACC affairs where Tech would be in it until the fourth quarter, and then it would just slip away because there wasn't enough talent on the floor for Tech to keep it up. And now you've got 6-7 players for Tech that can really play, and he's recruited well. He's gotten Traylor out of the transfer portal. This is a really talented team, and like I mentioned before, I think it's just consistency. And yesterday, first day of classes, they seemed to they weren't happy with the way they played defense yesterday. But I've been really impressed with how they've defended some of these teams that have multiple options. I'm interested to see how they stop NC State, because they've been all right against NC State in the past, but if NC State's a team you can get over the hump on, you're in one of the front runners for the ACC.
And so let's make the point that it's. If you look at ACC men's basketball, in my opinion, the league has just been declining in quality in recent years. It's reflected in the Big Ten ACC Challenge, which they used to dominate, and they don't anymore. And it's reflected in the rankings where you look and there's a bunch of SEC teams there now because that SEC money's starting to take effect, and I've talked about that. That's not the case in ACC women's basketball. That this is still a really good conference. I don't know if you've got it in the top of your head, David, but you mentioned Louisville and NC State
they're both top
top
four
four.
teams.
They're 3 and 4. Georgia Tech is also ranked, right?
Yeah, and Duke is
ranked.
somehow
and
still ranked.
Tech
Yeah.
is just outside.
North Carolina was ranked
Yes.
when they beat Virginia Tech, so
Yeah.
this is still a really good conference. You know, it's you're and I just want to make that point. So if they continue to win, that's
Yeah.
impressive. But to your point, you can't be half good and be successful in
Yeah.
this conference.
Yep. And like David mentioned, we talked about men's basketball with a busy week, similar for the women's team. Last night beat UVA. Pitt tomorrow in Castle Coliseum, 8 p.m. And then, again, Sunday, big game at NC State, number 4 in the country. Again, Tech probably could have beaten them twice last year, so an opportunity for a big upset win for Kenny Brooks. This team has talked publicly about their goal for this year. They want to reach a Sweet 16. They came up one step shy of that last year. Do you think it's possible for this team the way they're playing right now?
I think so, yes, and I think it all comes back to, I mean, basketball is I think all about people getting hot at the right times,
Right.
but I think Asia Shepherd's in a little bit of a slump right now, but I think the one thing that Tech has this year that it didn't have in the past is when a player like Asia Shepherd is not necessarily having a good game, kind of like what we were talking about with men's basketball. There are other players to complement that, to offset that. Azana Baines can have a good game.
Kayla King can make 3-pointers.
Georgia
Amer can make 3-pointers.
Kiana Traylor. She had 17 last night. 11 of them were in the second half. I mean, this is a team that has so many weapons now to go along with Kitley, where teams are still going to double team Elizabeth Kitley because they have to, because that's how good she is, or else you're basically just giving her free points because she, like you said, her fadeaway is unstoppable. So I think this is a team, you're going to have to win ACC games, but this is a team that could get a really good seed in the NCAA tournament if they keep performing how they are right now. And the problem was they ran into, Baylor. Who absolute saw, just running through everybody.
You don't want to be on that 7, 8, 9 line when the tournament gets announced. You want to be around a 5 or something.
Yeah, if Tech
like
can
that.
get to the 4-5 line, which I think this team can, this team is gonna.
Well, their numbers are really good. Their net numbers and all that stuff I think are really good.
Yeah.
So clearly, shooting is one thing that could derail them, is if too many players go in the tank in the same game.
Yep.
What do they do if Kitley gets in foul trouble? What do they? She plays
Almost the entire game.
Yeah. Did she play the entire game last night without coming out?
She played. I want to say they took her off a little bit, but
Probably at the end.
She mostly plays the entire game, and I think it's funny because Kenny mentioned this last night, how she doesn't really get in much foul trouble, or she hasn't. I think that was one of the problems with the North Carolina game, was she did a little bit, but Kenny mentioned how smart she is and how sometimes she'll just let opponents score because she doesn't want to. She knows, if I do something here, if I try to go up and block it, I might get called for foul. But I think that's the one part that's the one scenario that nobody wants to talk about.
Nobody wants to talk about.
It's if she ends up getting in foul trouble, what happens? But Azana Baines, then I guess Tech just goes smaller. Azana Baines, she's not a 5, she's a 4, but she can play it if Tech needs. And Kayla King's been, with Azana Baines out. Azana Baines had COVID and was out, missed a couple games, and because of that, Kayla King slid into the 4 spot. And Tech played pretty well with King at the 4 and Kitley at the 5. So I think it wouldn't be as good, but that's a situation I think you just kind of hope to avoid. And NC State is one of those teams that would pose those problems.
Yeah,
Cunane is, in the past, has at times been Kitley's kryptonite. So it's, those teams that have really, really good bigs, they're going to challenge Kitley. She needs to stay out of foul trouble. And, I don't think she's been challenged in that area too many times. Tennessee did.
Yep.
But I think that's been, Duke did a little bit, but we'll see it more down the stretch.
Well, with Tennessee, Asia Shepherd scored 30 in that game, so you could live with Kitley not having her best game when Shepherd's putting up numbers like that. A lot of excitement around the women's basketball team. For more coverage, Chris Hirons covers a lot of women's basketball for Tech Sideline. Mm-hmm. David did a great job filling in yesterday.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I just looked it up, Tech is 16th in the net
16th.
right now.
Wow.
Nice. So NC State is 2nd, North Carolina is 4th, Louisville is 5th. That's how, and Notre Dame is 15th. That is
five top 16
5 top
teams.
16.
That's how good the ACC is. I don't know if Dare Mabry won ACC Player of the Week this past week for Notre Dame. So Notre Dame's a really good team too. It's a talented conference, and it's funny because Tech might have two of the best players in the conference in Shepard and Kitley.
And Tech will certainly be ready for the NCAA tournament playing that kind of gauntlet in the ACC. Yeah. Let's move on. I want to talk a little bit of football here, not much. You guys covered a lot of football last week. But the early enrollees arrived on campus this week, the mid-years. So I looked at this list. It seems like a lot of the key signees for Virginia Tech are on campus already. You look at Devin Farrell at quarterback, Bryce Duke, Tucker Holloway, Benji Gosnell, Harrison St. Germain, Gunnar Givens, Cam Johnson. I mean, that's just some of them, but it seems like a lot of the guys that Tech probably wants on campus for spring practice are going to be here.
Yeah, I'm looking for the early returns on Cam Johnson.
Yes.
He's from St. Francis, right, Chris? Yeah,
Maryland.
Yeah, very good program. And of course, I want to know how Bryce Duke does, and I want to
That's
see
your
that.
man crush.
We think there's going to be some serious shakeout in the running back room after spring practice. So we'll see. Be interesting to see where all that lands. Yeah. Or before. Well, classes did start yesterday, and so I don't know if your average fan knows this, but if a player is thinking about transferring out, what some of them will do is wait until that spring semester starts, and for Virginia Tech, it's started. And then you hit the transfer portal because your school is paid for that semester.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go to the 6 a.m. workouts. You don't have to go to the weight room. You don't have to go to spring practice. You can just focus on school, which is paid for, and figuring out where you're going to transfer. So it's normal and common for a lot of players to hit the portal at the beginning of the spring semester. We haven't heard anything so far, correct?
Yeah, no,
Nothing.
But maybe we see some attrition the next week or so.
Right.
If that is the case. Some other names that I didn't mention, Johnny Dixon and Brody Meadows on the offensive line, Braylon Moore on the defensive line, Reed Pulliam at linebacker, and place kicker, John Love.
And they're all here?
All of them are here.
Wow, that's a lot.
12. I was about to say, and this is a 21, 22 person class.
So it's like half the class.
So over half the class. That is huge for a first time coach.
Yes.
That is, trying to figure out what everything's going to look like, where you've got your assistants evaluating the current guys and saying, what are these guys' strengths and weaknesses, which is something Brent Pry talked about in his introductory press conference, going through and evaluating every guy. Now you've got 12 of your 24-ish freshmen that'll probably come in that are here right now. They get an entire semester to work. That's huge.
Nice.
And for Brent Pry, definitely huge to get those guys on campus. Spring practice coming up in just a few months here. I want to talk about the big development with Brent Pry this week. He was at the Snowball fight on Sunday. I know everybody's been waiting for us to get to this. I thought that was really cool to see Brent Pry out there among the cadets and the students doing the Snowball fight. He said what did he say? He thought he was going to get knocked over or something out there.
Yeah.
But definitely fun and something that maybe Tech has been missing from their head man in charge of the program.
Yeah, it's difficult to be pleased with Brent Pry on this front and not criticize his predecessor. I don't want to do that. I don't want to go there because the guy showed up on our podcast and did a great job.
Yes.
And there just wasn't enough of that. So people are asking the question, Brent Pry is everywhere. And shortly after he was hired, he shows up at a men's basketball game on a Saturday and gets the cheers. And some snide dude on Twitter is like, is he going to the women's basketball game tomorrow too?
And he was there.
And yeah, he did. He went to the women's basketball game the next day and got introduced and got the cheers.
Well, it was funny with that pregame. They played a video of him introducing himself and saying, sorry, I can't be there. I'm out on the recruiting trail. I guess he just showed up anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe this guy on Twitter was just a Jason and Arlington equivalent, which you young guys probably won't understand that reference. But he is certainly hitting all of the right notes in terms of fan relation and things like that. Mm-hmm. So for those of you wondering when you're going to get him on the podcast, I've had those conversations with Pete Morris, and they had to, first of all, Pry had to focus on hiring his staff. And they are recruiting like crazy right now. They're all over the state of Virginia, he and his entire staff. So the answer to that is they want to get through signing day, which is, early February, first Wednesday in February. And of course, he'll do a press opportunity that day. And then I get the impression from the things Pete has said to me that they are going to start making themselves available to the media. This is going to be different this time around.
Yeah.
Does that mean they're going to have open scrimmages every Saturday during spring practice? I don't know about that, but as far as being available to the media and podcasts and interviews and things like that, I really think you're going to see a big change there. And, Chris has a lot to say about this. So I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll say one more thing and then I'll bail and I'll let Chris finish. Ultimately, of course, you have to win on the field, but the guy is winning off the field so far.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm going to step out and let Chris come in. And I know he's sitting over there just busting.
We'll let Chris chime in here on some things with Brent Pry. Again, Snowball fight, and then all of his assistants were introduced at the basketball game on Saturday against Notre Dame.
That was cool.
Feels weird to be in this chair.
We're just moving everybody around today.
Yeah.
All right, so first of all, the Snowball fight. I get that it's difficult to not criticize Justin Fuente after seeing what Brent Pry did, but what you really have to criticize is the Virginia Tech administration. I mean, you think Brent Pry had ever heard of a Virginia Tech Snowball fight? No. Somebody over there told him and said, we need to get you to do this because this is what fans want to see. I mean, it wasn't just some random.
It wasn't just Brent Pry.
I think I'll go.
It wasn't Brent Pry saying.
It was a whole video production
Yeah.
designed as propaganda for the fan base.
They had photographers, videographers.
Right.
They had everybody there.
Correct. It was a huge production by the athletic department.
Yeah, which is
And
smart.
so basically, they said, "This is what you're doing because the fans want to see that." Nobody ever told Justin Fuente that he needed to do things like that.
Yeah.
And they didn't realize that until They didn't realize that they needed to do that until
the
5
end,
years
yeah.
after they hired him.
Yeah.
And then once they did, he was perfectly willing to do it.
But
They
it was
just
too
never
late.
asked him until
Yeah.
then.
And it was too late at that point.
So what you're seeing here is an athletic department itself that has learned from its past mistakes.
I agree with that. Yeah.
All right, well, I want to wrap things up on the Snowball fight. I told Will and Chris I was going to do this, but David, you can jump in too. Just for fun, let's pick, if you guys had to go against each other in a snowball fight, I want you to pick 3 Virginia Tech all-time athletes to be on your team, and we'll have, maybe we'll get a poll or something going of which team would win. We'll let Chris start seniority rules here.
Now, who wins the snowball fight based on like number of hits? I guess?
Yeah, I get.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to pick David Wilson because nobody'd be able to hit him. He's so fast. He's my number 1 pick.
There are different strategies here. Do you go arm? Do you go elusiveness? What are you thinking, David?
Yeah, you guys mentioned Angela Tincher earlier. I'm not going to steal from you because
I'm not picking.
You're not
so
picking.
You got it.
So I can pick Tincher.
Yeah.
Oh, I would probably go. I would probably go Angela Tincher. Just like that arm, I don't think I'd want to be anywhere near that.
But can she hit a moving target?
I mean,
That's true. That's the question. Could she hit David Wilson?
Michael Vick could hit. Michael Vick could hit David Wilson. Great arm, could hit moving targets. I'm going Michael Vick with my number 2
All right, so
pick.
we're going all football for Chris so far, David.
Yeah, I would be tempted to go like Tyrod, like another quarterback.
You might need it elusive,
And
but also
elusive.
can throw.
But yeah, somebody who's he's not like Sean Glennon who's gonna like sit there and get hit in the pocket. He's gonna like move away.
Good comparison.
Yeah, I mean
he's not going to just stand there and get hit by snowballs.
Yeah, I mean he'll actually like try to dodge. And I feel like quarterbacks are very smart. He'll draw up some good battle plans.
All right, we got one more pick each. What we got 3 football players, 2 of which are quarterbacks, and then Angela Tincher.
I've got 2 elusive guys, one of which who can throw. I'm trying to think what else. A baseball player. I'll go with my buddy Brad Klontz, a baseball pitcher. he can throw.
That's true.
And he'd get you from a weird angle too, because he was one of those sidearm submarine pitchers.
Might also be elusive if they're aiming high and he can go low.
Right. So that's my 3: David Wilson, Michael Vick, Brad Klontz.
I don't even know. I was trying to think of baseball players I would take. Just I feel like you want all the arm power you can get, right?
Yeah.
Shoot, maybe I'd take like Gavin Cross. I feel like Gavin Cross would be really good in a snowball fight.
He's a right fielder. Right fielders are known
Dude,
for having...
he has a huge arm.
Yeah.
I was thinking about pitchers. I was like, I could take a pitcher, but Gavin Cross has a pretty good arm.
All right, so we got our first current Virginia Tech athlete. All right, so I don't know if you want to drop it in the YouTube, put it on the boards, whatever. Who would win the snowball fight?
We should do a poll.
Again, Chris and David are on these teams as well. Take that as you will.
Jesus.
So Chris has David Wilson, Michael Vick, Brad Klontz, David with Angela Tincher, Tyrod Taylor, Gavin Cross. So do with that what you will. With that, let's talk to the YouTube chat. Katie, any good questions in there today?
Just one today from Devin Karina Blanton. It says, do you think this year's men's basketball team has a length problem, as in we're undersized at the 3, 4, and 5 positions?
Well, if that were the case, then all of Buzz Williams' teams would have had a length problem.
Undersized was a question, right?
Yes.
Undersized.
I don't know about undersized. I just think I was having this conversation yesterday. I think it's part of Mike Young thought a guy like David Gasson would have developed better, or maybe he just didn't have the 1,000-foot perspective of where does David Gasson, I think David Gasson's developed a lot, but where is he developed in terms of the entire ACC? I think Tech has size, but I think it's part of Mike doesn't trust those guys a lot, and it doesn't feel like he can put them in good position.
The backup power forward and backup center are bigger than the starters.
Yeah.
Yes.
They just aren't as good
Yeah.
right now. I think all those points Justin Mutt scored against Notre Dame, if he was a traditional size power forward, I don't think he would have scored them. He was a matchup problem. They had trouble defending him in space.
Because of his
in that game.
elusiveness. Yeah.
Exactly. So it goes both ways. It's the same team that made the NCAA tournament last year from a size standpoint.
Yeah. Yeah.
In fact, last year's team was even smaller, probably, considering, Radford was like a 6'1" 2 guard.
Yeah.
And Jalen Cone came off the bench and was a 5'9" shooting guard.
Yeah. I think this is a team that overall, I think the starting 5 is solid, but after that, you notice against Virginia, David Gasson didn't play a lot, but John Ogiaco did, because of the size difference. And Mike Young's always trying to find these matchups. Where does John Ogiaco fit the best? Where does David Gasson fit the best? And it's tough when he has to find specific matchups instead of saying, I'm going to throw these guys out there and make the other team defend them. And I think it all just goes back to development, because I think there's size. John Ogiaco's huge. David Gasson, he's not as big, but he's a decent presence.
He's got length. Now, to be fair, he gave Tech quality minutes against Notre Dame. Now, he didn't score, but he came in and had some game-changing blocks.
Yeah,
in that
game. And it's picking your moments.
Mm-hmm.
But John Ogiaco didn't play a lot against Notre Dame, and so I think a lot of it is just the development in certain areas. And I think Mike, he's talked more about this lately, but I just feel like he doesn't have as much trust in his bench as he probably wants. Padula, he doesn't, factor in this in terms of height, but, he's a freshman. And against Virginia, we saw, he came out there and got pickpocketed by K.A. Clark. And we saw him being a freshman, raw talent, just not much experience. But I think just in general, there's a little bit of depth there, but Mike hasn't developed it as much as he wants, and there's just not as much trust there as
generally speaking, in Mike Young's system, he expects them to take off in their third year.
Yeah,
and I think, like David was saying, you'd rather Mike Young be able to say, John Ogiaco may cause problems for this other team, I'm going to put him in there, instead of saying, here's a spot I can slide him in and not have many ishes.
No, we'll say that Ogiaco is a much better player right now than he was when he enrolled.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Sure. It's just, so is Keve Aluma, right? and Ogiaco basically missed a full year of development last year. Well, everybody missed a development off-season,
but he was injured.
But he was injured too on top of that, and really didn't come back until ACC play started. And I think Gasson has developed, but again, it's tough to take Justin Mutz off the floor.
Yeah, and I think part of it is, in specifically John Ogiaco, he's 6'10", 6'11", and he's not as mobile as Kevin Loom or Justin Mutz are. So you don't want to throw him in there. You can throw him in there against Caden Shedrick or Francisco Cafaro for Virginia, but if you throw him in there against a Nate Leshevsky or a Paul Atkinson, they're a lot more mobile, a lot more elusive, and it's a tougher matchup for him. So I think it's a little bit Mike picking his matchups here there.
That's a good question. Thank you, Katie. I think that's going to wrap it up here on episode 219 of Tech Sideline Podcast. I got both of you here. What's coming up on Tech Sideline?
Well, yesterday we did a review of the offensive recruits that visited for Junior Day this past weekend. And today, David's written a basketball game preview. We'll post this podcast, obviously. I'm going to start to work on the defensive part of the Junior Day article, and I'll probably run that tomorrow morning. But we got to input those guys in the database today and start writing it and then post it tomorrow. And then a Friday Q&A is normal on Friday. I think that's it for me.
Yeah, I'll be in Raleigh tonight.
Okay.
I'm driving down this afternoon, so I'll have a story from Raleigh. Women's basketball Thursday. Chris Hirons will be there, and he'll have a story. Big wrestling match on Friday. NC State.
Yes.
ACC opener. Just going to plug the SERTC, the Southeast Regional Training Center.
Yes.
But that's a huge matchup. I don't think Jack Brisendine's going to be there, but Jack Brisendine will have a story from that. So little stuff coming up. Big weekends against NC State.
Yes. Yeah. Tech men's basketball tonight, wrestling on Friday, you said?
Yeah.
And then Sunday, women's basketball takes on top 5 NC State. So, a lot of Wolfpack for the Hokies this week, I guess. All right, well, that will wrap it up here on episode 219 of the Tech Sideline Podcast, brought to you by the Southeast Regional Training Center. Want to thank all of you for listening and watching, and thank everybody on set. No longer on camera, Will Stewart, founder and general manager of Tech Sideline. You can find him at Will Stewart TSL on Twitter. Chris Coleman across the way, lead analyst and columnist for Tech Sideline at Chris Coleman TSL on Twitter. David filling in the second half once again very well at The Real D Cunna on Twitter, the managing editor of Tech Sideline. Katie Adams, once again, the fourth chair, did a great job with her segment in the middle and then handling those questions at the end at Katie6Adams on Twitter. Malcolm Stewart does a great job behind the scenes as always. I'm your host, Jake Lyman, signing off here on episode 219 of the Tech Sideline Podcast. Enjoy the game tonight, Hokies fans. We'll see you next time.